So my name is Nina Mazar. I'm a professor in the marketing department at Questrom and also the co-director of the Susilo Institute for Ethics in the Global Economy, also housed at Questrom. I'm a behavioral scientist, and what I do is I apply insights from psychology, economics, and related sciences to think about interventions to help individuals or companies to improve their behavior. And that can really range from organ donation to savings to DEI efforts, you name it. And it's usually very experimental. So we think of interventions and we test them in the field and compare them with the standard approach to see by how much can we really change behavior or not. So there's a lot of research out there that behavioral scientists do that looks at how to change individual behavior. And, we're working on things such as how can we get people to sign up to become organ donors? How can we help them to save more money and so on and so on? But when it comes to trying to help organizations make better decisions, there is just not that much research out there trying to use behavioral interventions to change organizational behavior. And it's an interesting question to ask, do nudges even work on organizations? I mean, we know they work on individuals, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they work on organizations. So we had this amazing opportunity when I used to be at the University of Toronto. We had this amazing opportunity to work with the Ministry of Finance in the province of Ontario. And they came to us and said, look, every year we have a few companies that do not pay a certain tax. It's the EHT tax, the employer health tax. And when they are delinquent with their payments, we send them a letter. Is there any way we can try and help those companies to pay their taxes sooner? And so we looked at what they usually send. We looked at that letter, how it usually looks like. And we thought, well, there is room for improvement, especially when you think about what are some of the behavioral insights that have worked for individuals, what could work here. And so what we decided to do was, we didn't change the content of the letter really. But first of all, and this makes intuitive sense, we simplified the letter in terms of language. We used simpler language. We also used second person language, that you have not paid on time. And used more active language. But then the biggest change that we made was we reorganized the information so that we basically made it sound like, paying your taxes is really easy. There are these 3 steps. And then we mentioned where they have to pay, how they can pay. And we actually also added a bogus deadline by when they should pay. And notice, once you're late paying your taxes, it's in your best interest to pay as soon as you can, because every single day you are accumulating interest fees. Yet we entered a deadline, or we added a deadline by which they should pay, and we picked that deadline based on when the government would typically start additional efforts to collect money. So those were the only changes that we did to the letter. So nothing really content-wise different. Also notice that these organizations that were late filing their taxes, we looked at who they were, and almost everybody had paid taxes before. So these were not newcomers that just simply didn't know. Anyways, so what we did is we ran this experiment for 2 consecutive years. So every year we, I think, assigned 40% of delinquent companies to the standard letter that the government sends out, and 60% to our changed letter. And in both years, we found that our letter was significantly better at getting companies to pay their taxes and pay faster. When we sum up the results over those 2 years, our experiment letter brought in approximately $600,000 more in remittances and saved the government more than $11,000 in collection costs. And had everybody who was delinquent received our experiment letter, the government would have received an additional 1 million in remittances and saved approximately 20,000 more in collection costs. We had the opportunity to work with an organization, so nudging an organization. Again, there aren't that many opportunities to do that because you need to have the buy-in either of the organization or in this particular case of the government to run this pilot study. And what was really wonderful about the study is also that we had the opportunity to run it for 2 consecutive years, because usually when we run experiments, we just run it once and we find something or we don't find something. And we don't have a good sense whether if we reuse that same intervention, so do individuals or organizations, do they basically get immune to it? Does the effect wear off? And here we had the opportunity for 2 consecutive years to use our experimental letter. And we had also some companies that were indeed delinquent in both of these years and that got our experimental letter. And we found that the effect did not get weaker. If at all, it got even a little bit stronger, even though not significant. So that is really meaningful to know that we can use that same letter in 2 consecutive years, and a company that is exposed it for 2 consecutive years is still doing better or behaving better than somebody who gets the standard letter. When it comes to behavioral science, we are big believers that the context really matters. So I would never say, just take what we have found and apply exactly that and you would find the exact same finding, because I don't know what other bottlenecks there may be with other companies. But I do think it is important for companies who are interested in these findings to see, are they willing and able to run pilot tests and see what works and what doesn't. And one of the things that they could be testing is something like what we have applied, which is called a planning prompt intervention. So making it easy for individuals or for organizations to really think through, okay, when, how, and where to act. So making it simple. Simplifying language is usually almost always good, right? Because you also want people to understand what they're reading and make it as relevant as possible. I mean, all this sounds very intuitive and you should be doing that anyways, right? And we haven't really done much other than that.